What if all the world united as a single country? I feel strongly about this one. There's a lot to talk about. Let's see what we're going to talk about first, though.
149 million square kilometers.
And it would have 9 billion people.
Without the need for passports, traveling would be as easy as taking a domestic flight. However, with open borders, smuggling and illegal trade could spiral out of control. With 8 billion people, the population density would be about 53 people per square kilometer, similar to South Africa or Botswana.
Yeah, things would definitely change
there.
there.
Tokyo would still reign as the most populated city, followed by Delhi, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, and Mexico City. But where would the capital be? Well, Europe might seem like an obvious choice.
It's in the middle.
Cities like London, Berlin,
seemingly
or
in the
Vienna.
middle.
Or perhaps it could be New York City, given its global influence.
I bet you we wouldn't even be able to agree upon where to put the capital, let alone all sorts of resources and logistical things. I'm gonna wait for the end of this video, but like I understand this is like a really popular idea, like when you're a kid. But as soon as you just scratch the surface of how we would logistically do this, it's like, it's not gonna happen. There's no way it's gonna happen.
Migration would become a major challenge.
Maybe if aliens
people from
invade.
less developed regions would move to developed areas. Also, policing and maintaining law and order in such a vast and diverse population would require a level of coordination the world has never seen.
Maybe in the future, but I can't even wrap my head around it. There's definitely gonna be a comment about world unites, 1 second later, 300 civil wars occur. There it is, Civil War speed run. I forgot that like a lot of people legitimately, unironically want to do this. You're talking about billions and billions of unhappy people. Like, well, I mean, there it is. There's the angry face right there. How do you choose what parts of the world gets certain resources? How do you choose who's going to get money? Everyone's always going to think that they're being like, left out of the deal, left out of the world government deal. However, look at all these first categories they would get. Like I said, maybe in the future, maybe if aliens come or if there is some sort of space empire. Napoleon once said, if the whole world was a single country, Istanbul would be its capital. As for the whole world, no. But for Africa, yes, Africa must unite. I think pirates might become quite the issue for this world government. The fact that it was only 9 times bigger than Russia, I don't want the world to unite. That's just going to end up in a mess.
So
the real Switzerland of Africa. Is it Rwanda?
Asia has got 2 Switzerland.
Oh yes, okay, so we have gone through this series. There's Switzerlands all around the world. In Asia, it's Bhutan and Turkmenistan. But what about Africa? I can only think of Rwanda. It's got to be a smaller place. Who's the most neutral nation in Africa? I feel like there's a lot of neutral places in Africa.
Initially, we got South Africa, and moving up, we have Senegal, which both avoided interfering in Russia-Ukraine conflict. Then we have Namibia, which during the Cold War stayed neutral, even after pressure from both sides.
What? No. What's the conclusion? Just based off one conflict, the Russian-Ukraine war? To be fair, a lot of these countries only recently got their independence. Turkmenistan is the North Korea of West Asia, not the Switzerland of Asia. So the dark blue, these are all the countries that led the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. Light blue are just observer states. Funny that the Soviet Union was an observer state, but the USA wasn't. So in a way, you could say that Africa is all kind of the Switzerland of Africa. South Sudan was only recently just born. The Switzerland of Africa is a nickname for several regions in Africa. We've got Guinea, these highlands, this district, Lesotho. Oh, Lesotho, I have heard of that one. Maybe Guinea as well. Okay, so maybe it's Guinea. I have played these games before. I got trauma because of this song. Okay, Info Hub. China almost colonized the world. They definitely had a chance to. I have looked into this because obviously that's a big historical question. Why didn't they do more colonization in history?
Long before the Europeans, during the 1400s, Europeans were struggling while China was in its golden age and discovering
almost
things.
got.
Moreover,
if I remember correctly, there was an opportunity for them to have maybe discovered America. Something happened though, clearly.
This dude's leadership, China was the literal best in shipbuilding and navigation.
Obviously, the Chinese empires were extremely. I mean, even they knew about them in Rome. It was the Roman Empire and the Chinese Empire. There was some stuff in the middle though.
It had colonized Oceania and Americas. Most of the world would be speaking Chinese today. However, when Zheng He passed, Chinese emperors stopped overseas voyages, focusing more on their inland empires. Sadly for China, Europeans discovered this glitch, and now we all speak European languages.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would have helped if the Pacific Ocean wasn't quite as big as it is. There's a part of our globe where if you look at it from the right angle, we literally just look like an ocean planet. It appears like there's literally no land on our small blue marble. Keep in mind too, China was constantly at war with itself or its neighbors. They kind of always throughout their history had their hands full. Also, they had a lot of incentive to just focus on their west. This is where the Silk Road went. This is where money was. So they obviously wanted to expand more this way, not out in the Pacific Ocean where there was nothing. If the emperors listened to this guy, entire world bing chilling. China could have become the British Empire before the British British Empire, but decided to go the Mongol path. Bro knew the glitch, but no one listened. The original, I've played these games before. Yeah, to be honest, I can't really see a scenario where the Chinese governments, any of them, really want to do this. The Europeans, it makes sense to go around the Ottomans, to go find India. I don't see what scenario could happen for the Chinese where they look out towards, well, it'd be the east and go settle new lands. So interesting to think about. Nice job, Happy Earth.
Germany could have won World War II if they didn't suck.
Jesus. Okay, let's watch that again.
Germany could have won World War II if
well,
they didn't suck. More than 300,000 Allied troops were trapped in Dunkirk and trying to evacuate for Britain. The painter gave his army an order to halt, allowing the British and French troops to leave the encirclement. His dumbass probably did this to try to get a peace deal with Britain, but if he pushed on instead, the 200,000 dead or captive British soldiers could have lowered the people's support for the war.
Very true. I feel like him getting the peace deal was the only way he wins, quote unquote, wins World War II. So him thinking that he could do that, he just did it in the wrong way, and he made this massive mistake here.
Leading to Britain piecing out, allowing the painter to focus on throwing his paint all over the Soviet Union.
Yes, that was really the only goal for him that could have saved him. This is false. He halted the panzer divisions for the infantry to catch up. Urban warfare with no to little infantry support is a death sentence. Even Mustache Man knew that. Italy would have still found a way to mess it up. The problem with Dunkirk, he couldn't push forward. His infantry was lagging behind, and mechanized units were running out of supplies. This is the pivotal moment. This is the moment where Germany could have won World War II, at least against the British, because if they win at Dunkirk, or at least they cause the Brits to take several hundreds of thousands of casualties, yeah, I can't see them piecing out, and then they just have to fight the Soviets one-on-one, which they probably inevitably win. Funny stuff, Balkanized, that definitely got a laugh out of me. Here's his prediction on who the U.S. will be invading, I guess, in 2025, under the Trump presidency. Oh, already Canada? Really? Canada?
First on the list is Canada. The Canadian economy is heavily dependent on trade with the U.S.
Is he saying they will invade Canada, or these are possible invasions for the USA at some point this year? I don't see this one happening.
Plan is to cut off trade with Canada to weaken their economy so that they'll be forced to become a U.S. state.
Nah, I don't think he's gonna want war. He's just gonna, if he wants Canada, it would have to be done diplomatically. I don't even know if he really does. He just might be just trying to strike a deal.
Next up is Greenland. America has offered to buy the country before for its
I don't think we're gonna go to war with Greenland.
However, if this does not work, Trump might do something shocking. He has stated that the use of military force could be used against Greenland and the third country on the list, Panama, if they do not join the U.S.
Panama, yes. We've already fought in Panama before. Panama's the only one I agree with here, but apparently Panama is gonna begin to work with the U.S. They already are beginning to make the deal. Yeah, I can only imagine Panama. I would have titled this video differently. The U.S. might go to war in 2025. We got Trump invading 3 countries before GTA 6. Bro's created his own historical fiction. Bro going down the non-historical focus tree right now. Canada, Greenland, and Panama fighting the U.S. Meanwhile, Mexico chilling. Yeah, it is funny that they weren't even mentioned. 99 plus missed calls from NATO. What if all of Earth's ice melted? Unfortunately, this is a question a lot of people were asking. I hope this doesn't happen, but it's not looking good. The world as we know it today
would be completely submerged, with sea levels rising by 70 meters or up to 230 feet. Coastal cities like New York, London, and Shanghai would disappear, while low-lying countries like Bangladesh
is gone. The Maldives also just completely gets wiped out.
Risk vanishing entirely.
Well, I think the Netherlands would probably figure it out, to be fair. That is kind of what they do, just defeat the ocean.
Vanishing entirely. In North America, Florida and the Gulf Coast would sink entirely.
Yes, Florida is extremely flat. You'd be surprised.
South America's Amazon basin would transform into an inland sea, erasing cities like Buenos Aires.
And that's a whole lot of ecological damage that's going to happen to the rainforest as well.
The Mediterranean Sea would consume much of Europe's southern coast. Italy would shrink dramatically, with Venice disappearing completely. The United Kingdom would also lose much of its
we'd have to build dams everywhere.
While Scandinavian countries transform into a patchwork of islands. Africa's coast...
I mean, funny enough, Scandinavia already kind of is. Well, first of all, that's Nordic because you included Finland, but they kind of are just like a bunch of islands up there. Sweden, after all, does have the most islands in the world, believe it or not. In fact, the top 3 are all Nordic countries: Sweden, Norway, Finland. I know we're supposed to be talking about ice melting, but this is just an interesting topic that I've noticed about these 2 places. Like visiting them, seeing them with my own eyes. These places are just a bunch of islands really close together. So no more UK, the Nordic, gone, Denmark especially.
Africa's coastlines would disappear, but much of its
Africa would stay intact. I was going to say, Africa is still going to like keep its shape. After reviewing so many of these maps, Africa does relatively well. It's funny because Africa is also a relatively flat continent compared to others.
Indonesia,
but they do
Singapore
kind of
would submerge, whereas Australia would lose its fertile eastern coast.
Don't they get an inland? Yeah, I was going to say, don't they also get an inland sea? Well, a lot of Australia already is uninhabitable, but Greenland would finally be green, and we'll be able to grow oranges in Antarctica. Nice. Don't worry, the Netherlands already prepared for centuries. So yeah, the oceans would rise approximately 230 feet or 70 meters if all ice melted. And this is how the Earth would change. Pretty much somewhat recognizable, but at the same time, kind of not. Luckily for all the ice to melt, we have, well, some scientists say it's going to take a long time. So like 5,000 years. The problem is, even if just 10% of it melts, that still will be detrimental, even 5%. Geo all day, let's go. How the Netherlands managed to reverse sea level rise. Okay, we already talked about this. I talk about this all the time. This is the #1 meme for the Dutch. But let's see.
Sea levels, nobody has found a solution quite as effective as that of the Netherlands.
They've
been reversing the effects of climate change for hundreds of years now. This all started in the 1100s.
I mean, it's funny when it's even like a trait, a civilization trait in the game, Civilization. This is what they do. And I really love the fact that this is their special ability. So, I mean, I'm sure they don't want sea level rise, but they're more ready for it than anyone on Earth.
This all started in the 1100s, when the Dutch were getting tired of seeing their towns repeatedly
1,000 years ago.
Unfortunately for them, the fact that most of their land was only a few meters above sea level and located extremely close.
Fun fact, this is why they are so tall. Because if the water does come back, they'll still be high enough. That's what I've heard anyways. I don't know.
Way more common than surrounding areas.
There probably is
these floods started off
some
simple,
sort of
with the Dutch building river dikes
genetic example why.
But as the centuries would go by, these projects would reach immense scales. Windmills were used to drain water. Larger dams were built. Entire islands were created out of the North Sea.
Yeah.
And, well, you get the picture.
They reclaimed so much land.
How insane this is.
And this is where a lot of Dutch people currently live. It was literally underwater centuries ago.
Here's a map of how much of the Netherlands lies below sea level. It's estimated that more than 65% of the country's total land would have been underwater if it wasn't for this Dutch ingenuity.
So smart, so crazy. Love, this is some of my favorite stories in all of human history. In fact, they just did this. That's why it said, God created the world, but the Dutch created Holland. As a water manager in the Netherlands, I have a technical addition. We have been protecting the lowlands not against climate change, but against soil erosion. About 700 years, much of our country was oh yes. So they pump out water in waterways, bringing it to the sea. Netherlands aura after this. Thanks, Rachel Geo. What really caused the wildfires in California? This will be interesting as someone from LA, which is still very much affecting so many people here.
California's west coast, and this has left thousands of buildings destroyed.
But let's see what the answer is.
Tens of thousands to evacuate their homes.
Yes.
So most people,
honestly, a lot of people that lived there, they had their house burned down, they're going to leave California and they're never coming back. The only question is how many.
Don't know.
That will be
wildfires have been inevitable.
That will be what we're trying to predict.
And people are just now finding out. For example, if you look at where most of the west coast moisture comes in, you can see that Southern California lies
we're going to talk about
its range. And this is because while the
why
Pacific
it's so dry
Ocean deposits a fair amount of rain into the states of Washington and Oregon.
Yes, that is why it always rains in Seattle. It's so green up here in Cascadia.
Oregon. This rain is blocked
also northern
by a high pressure zone
too,
encompassing most of Southern California during the summer months, making it generally way drier than its surrounding areas.
Yes, which is why we have nice weather, but this is the downside.
During the wintertime, however, this zone briefly shrinks down, giving California almost all of its yearly rain in a very short time period. Now, while this means that Southern California should be having a rainy season right now, 2024 saw an abnormally dry season during the summer, and this
and in 2023 we actually had a lot of rain, so there were a lot of like dying plants. It was even more of a tinderbox
left on the surface, tons of flammable bushes and shrubbery. Coupling this with the immensely strong Santa Ana winds, and these are the perfect ingredients to create.
That was the first time I ever really realized how winds can be dangerous. That sounds stupid, but I mean in terms of a fire, like the whole red flag warning. I always thought to myself, why do we need a red flag warning? Who cares? Just a little bit of a wind. Like as long as it's not hurricane force winds, I figured, it's not a big deal. But you combine that with a fire, and obviously it is unstoppable. Crazy it took me that long to figure that whole thing out. You forgot to mention not keeping water reservoirs full. Yeah, that was a pretty bad move. Arizona is drier than this, and our cities don't burn. Unfortunately, fires happen all the time here in California. This one was just really, really bad. Really great video. I like that explanation of overall what happens here in California. Check out all these channels. As always, big ol' thanks to the patrons. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund. Rip Grandpa. I will force Drew to eat Spanish food unless he remembers Imperial and modern Japan have the same flag. Alexander the Terrible. Connor Pavlik. DOOCHBAGGINS. Fredrik Tibblin. KingBearHaze. LuxembourgLover. NordTyrol. Niglu the Goat. Tambre. Check that link down below if you want your name here.